Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our discussion with Matt Bailey on talking today about the email practices that are ethical or borderline and legal, and also updating you on the current compliance issues such as GDPR, and of course, just giving you some good best practices that have been proven throughout the year. I'm Dan Beavener. I'm Simplilearn's Director of Training and Research, and your moderator today. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to our esteemed guest, Matt Bailey. Matt Bailey is a best-selling author, marketing expert, corporate trainer, and professional speaker. He's the founder and president of SiteLogic Marketing. Matt is the digital marketing instructor for the Direct Marketing Association in New York City and a member of the digital marketing faculty at Simplilearn. And today we're going to be focusing specifically on what we can do with email. So hello and thanks for joining us, Matt. How are you doing?
All right, Dan, thanks for the invitation to present here, and I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Really good, thank you. This looks like an exciting topic because email is one of the things that we get the most questions on because it's always changing. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about digital marketing is that it's measurable, and few things are as measurable as email. We really know what our rates are, and so a lot of these things are easy to test. What's more important is we want to make sure we're doing it the right way and the ethical way. So thanks for helping us out today.
Well, I mean, you've got that right. I mean, email has been around, almost since the beginning of the internet. Email's been a part of it, and I'm amazed at how many people have always said throughout the years that email's going to die and email's going to go away, or the email killer. And what do we have? Right now we have email that tops the list when it comes to return on investment, when it comes to engagement, when it comes to reaching people one-on-one. Email shows itself constantly to be the number one channel to reach your existing customers, as well as to follow up and nurture prospects to become customers.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that email is almost 50 years old. Those of us that were around. Tell us what we're going to learn today.
All right, Dan. Well, I'm going to start with a couple of things. And like you mentioned, things are changing. And it's not so much the technology of email. It's more the regulations that you really need to keep aware of. And the nice thing is, if you're using an email service provider, for the most part, they are going to keep you in line with the regulations, as a lot of the impact is going to hit the service provider. But as an account holder, you are just as responsible as your email service provider to stay on the right side of the regulations. So the first part of this is really going to be covering some of the regulations out of GDPR, but also the California privacy law that is, it's moving forward, it's going backwards, it's moving, and there's a lot of people trying to toughen that law, and there are a lot of companies trying to weaken the law. But the trend is that regulations are going to become much more restrictive on how companies acquire data, process data, and use it. And so one of the things that you absolutely have to do is provide crystal clear terms of what you are going to do with someone's information. What that means is you have to be clear what you're going to do with their data. If you're simply going to store it, or if you're going to use it for segmentation, personalization, marketing, if you're going to process it in any way. And yes, segmenting it based on demographics, based on age, gender, what products they like, that is considered processing data. So even though it seems as though that is the simplest thing you can do with the data, it's still considered processing. Now, especially if you are going to share that data with third parties. Now, it may be anonymized, but in order to work with a third party, in order to find out more about your customers, that is another level of processing the data, and that needs to be disclosed up front. So the more disclosure you make up front that you will be processing the data, you will be segmenting, you will be presenting offers based on the data, the more that's going to keep you in the clear and keep you on the right side of these regulations. Now, the second thing is offering clear consent options. And this is where a lot of companies are having trouble or issues because there's a lot of things that you have to change. If you haven't changed the way that you are getting subscribers in the past few years, this is where the trouble is. This means that there must be clear consent terms. What that means is you can't pre-check a box for people to subscribe or to agree to the terms of service. It needs to be clear. This is called express consent. This means that people have to opt in, so you can't pre-check anything. The user has to check the box themselves. This means that everything has to be opt-in. Years ago, people would usually default to doing an opt-out, that if you bought something, downloaded something, you were automatically opted in and people had to opt out. Now the laws and regulations favor consumers so that they have to make an expressed, clear opt-in action, such as that checkbox. So if you are using anything that is pre-checked, change that right now. Change it and go to an uncheck and let the user check the box, and that will clear you. And let me move forward here. There we go. Okay. Anything that could be shown as unambiguous consent, that means it's got to be very, very clear what the user is going to receive, what you are going to do with their data, and they opt in. Now, one of the ways you can protect yourself beyond the regulation is to do the double opt-in. The double opt-in is where the user who subscribes or gives you their information receives an email verifying that they have opted in, and they need to click the link to verify their subscription. Now, this is not a required step, but it is recommended by every email service provider. It will give you that extra layer of protection that not only do you have a record of the subscriber opting in, but you also have a record of them opting in that second time with that verification email. That proof of consent is going to be big because that is a requirement under GDPR, is that you know what form was used to gain that consent. You know which landing page they were on to originally sign up or subscribe. And so having that proof of consent really keeps you safe. And if you're using an email service provider, all those records will be automatically kept. Now, as an example of clear consent, this is one. I love it because it's so simple. All it says is subscribe to our newsletters and your name and email. This is clear because it tells you this is how the data will be used. And if all you do is send newsletters with this list that's generated by this form, you're great. There's no checkbox required. So GDPR does not require checkboxes, okay? What GDPR requires is clear consent terms. This is an example of a clear consent term because there's only one option. And if you want it, you submit your information. So I hope that clarifies, because many people get the checkbox issue blown out of proportion. All you have to be is clear as to what you're going to do with the information and what people are receiving in return. So this is a great example of how to show clear consent terms and gather information. Now also, the other part of this is you also have to make it easy for people to unsubscribe. What that means is in every email, there needs to be an unsubscribe link. And when someone clicks that link, you have to make it easy for them to unsubscribe. So this does not require me to put in my first name and last name. I can hit unsubscribe from there. What this means is you cannot charge a fee for someone to unsubscribe. You should not require them to log in and provide any additional information. This must be a one-page, no process required. Anyone that is requiring you to log in, add more information, or anything like that, that is not covered In fact, what that does is if you put any obstacle besides a single click to unsubscribe on that page, then you could find yourself in trouble with GDPR, and also with the California regulations as well. Those are really consumer friendly as far as allowing opt-out. And so be sure that you're not requiring people to jump through a lot of actions that will inhibit them from unsubscribing. You also have to have a record. So not only do you have to keep a record of when they opted in and how you receive that information, such as the landing page and the opt-in information, you also need to maintain that record of when they opted out and how they opted out to unsubscribe from communications. Again, if you're using an ESP, that will help you. Now, what I see a problem here is when people combine consent. And really, what you're doing is trapping people. You are trapping people to really purchase a product and consent to something at the same time, and that's called bundling. You can't do that. Let me give you an example here. This is the good part, okay? This is it. This is an opt-in consent that provides separate opt-in for each offer. So if I am purchasing something at an e-commerce site, I have to accept the terms of service. I can do that. However, I also have to make a separate opt-in consent to receive email. You cannot bundle these together, that I have to opt into terms of service and automatically be subscribed to the email. Those are two separate offers, two separate things that require a separate opt-in. So this is good. This is exactly how it should be presented. How it should not be done is this way. This is actually, I was on a website trying to buy something, and I had to check. I have read the terms and conditions and the privacy policy and agree. Now, what does that require? If you look underneath there, it says, in order to keep you up to date, we will send you the newsletter. That was a requirement of the terms and conditions. And in order to check out, I had to agree to the terms of service, which implied that I would receive the email. So that was bundling an opt-in to the email in order to check out. That is holding your user hostage, and that is leveraging them to opt into a bundled option. So no, do not do this. And I hope these things are crystal clear, because these are the things that will trip up companies as more GDPR and more consumer-friendly regulations are implemented. Now, actually, I want to go back to this. Are there any questions at all? I think I've been very clear about the bundled opt-ins. Are there any questions that anyone has to this point about bundling and clear consent terms? All right, great. Okay, pop-ups. If you're like me, I'm on a page to read an article, and as soon as I get to that page, I get this pop-up. Now, there are pop-ups that offer me 10% off. There are pop-ups that offer me, all kinds of things. And in reality, I just want to read this article. Or I just got to the website, and immediately I'm faced with a pop-up. I got one the other day that allowed me to save 15% off my first order. The thing is, I'm just there to shop and look and see what's there. So if I dismiss this, do I not get the 15% off? There's a lot of questions about pop-ups. Do they really work? Are they annoying? What's going on with them? Now, there's good and bad. Looking at a lot of the studies and a lot of the research, number one, these pop-ups, they do increase conversions and they do increase subscribers, all right? That's the good side. And here's what's interesting about that. The good side are all about those upfront metrics, okay? What I mean by the upfront metrics, these are the people that they subscribe, so we see our subscriptions go up and we see conversion rates go up. The back-end metrics, this gets into, so beyond your your conversion rate. This gets into brand, and it also gets into customer lifetime value, which measures the value of a customer over their lifetime with a brand. All right? So here's the downside. The downside is people don't like them. Even though it increases subscriptions and conversions rates, there's also a little bit of irritation with users. It may damage your brand. But here's what blows my mind the most, is that subscribers generated from the pop-ups have lower engagement and lower lifetime value, which means you may get the sale up front because you offered them a discount. But over the full life of that customer, they may end up being a lower value customer who may cost you more in the long run than customers generated by other means. So it really takes more than just that entry-level measurement of, hey, we're getting subscribers and they're buying something. Well, you're offering them a 15% discount to buy something. What happens when that discount is no longer there? Are you comparing your customers that you've acquired from other means or that were acquired without the pop-up to the customers acquired through the pop-up and comparing their lifetime value or their value over a year or a quarter? So don't just look at the entry-level metrics or the superficial level metrics. Look beyond to see, are we getting quality customers who are with us over the long haul and not here just for that temporary discount? So here are some best practices. Number one, don't immediately show the pop-up as soon as someone gets to the website. Now this is, I think, so important, and because usually when I run into these pop-ups, I'm trying to read an article. That's my first goal. That is my first thing that I want to accomplish, is something about that article has convinced me to be there. And if you interrupt the reading of that article with an immediate pop-up, you've automatically damaged and inhibited me from accomplishing my objective. So usually your best practices put the pop-up anywhere between 30 and 60 seconds into the visit, and the best place to do it is blog posts and articles, okay? So you have to ask where the value is to the reader, all right? Let them meet their objective first, which is getting the information they want, and then timing that pop-up sufficiently to let them see the information, find the value from the information that you've published, and then present the pop-up. One thing that overwhelmingly will cause people to get frustrated is if you use those exit pop-ups, which prevent people from leaving your site, like going to the back button. That can cause a lot of problems, and people love to complain about those. But you have to look at allowing people to accomplish what they want rather than interrupting the objective in order to get that subscription. Now, the next thing is personalization. Personalization, and we see this constantly, that if you start personalizing the subject line, it immediately increases your open and click rates. And personalization is not just using someone's name. That's the number one. The easiest thing to do is personalizing. However, even in this day and age of personalization, I am shocked and amazed at how many emails I get with the parentheses and the variable for first name. I'm amazed at how many companies are getting this wrong and sending emails with the database call out rather than testing it to see if it works. So even though personalization is so big, I'm amazed at how many emails are being sent from companies that aren't testing to make sure the personalization database call out is working.
The other question I have about this is, if you have a form where you're collecting email, you got your database. A lot of people either put no information in there, or your field is missing, or it's not connecting. People put in like Mickey Mouse as the name, or just a bogus email address or something as the first name. And you really have to pay attention to your form going out so that you have something to compensate for people that do that or a missing field. Do you have any suggestions for that? I've seen one where you simply put there instead of like hello, because if a field is missing, uh,
Uh,
then what happens? What are some best practices to protect yourself if you have some missing data in your database?
well, some ESPs will run against the database and provide you a report of blank fields or things like that, so that you can either fix them or be aware. One of the biggest things I've seen is when people have a single name field rather than a first name
Hmm.
and last name, surname type of thing. If you've got one field for name, then you are just waiting for problems
Right.
because you're trying. No one knows how to do
Now, is it
that.
is there is there a way that you can concatenate stuff like that? I know you can use it in a maybe we're getting kind of in the weeds here as far as using Excel or something like
Mhm.
that. But there are ways that you can split names up in your database file. So I think what you pointed out at the beginning of answering this question is prime, that you really have to look at your list and clean it and take a glance at it and test
Mhm.
just to make sure there aren't any holes in it.
Well, that's the biggest thing is test. There's got to be a test group within your own organization, or even if it's just you, there has to be a test group, and every email service provider enables you to send tests to yourself before you hit send. And in that test group, you should have people looking at it on their mobile device, people looking at it on their desktop, across platforms. In that way, you will know for sure that your subject line is carrying the variables as well as rendering on each of those devices. I'm frankly shocked that people don't do that. And there's no limit. I even just myself with my own list, I think we probably test it 4 or 5 times before we even send it out, just to make sure that everything's working as it should. Everyone has to sign off on it, and then it goes. But that's probably the number one best practice is just to test and have a group of people look at
Right. Great. Thanks.
it. Well, personalization is more than just getting that name in there. Even though getting a name into the subject line increases your metrics of opens, clicks, and engagement, personalization it's what I just did. It's what I'm interested in. It's where I was. Personalization goes beyond the name. It goes into the intent of that person and what they've done to express intent. That's why birthday emails, where you wish someone happy birthday, if that's in your database, they get opened and clicked on more. Personalization is more about relevance than just name. And so if you give them a personalized email and let them know that, you just looked at this and don't forget about it or something like that, that is personalization. So it's not just the name, it's intent, it's relevance. That is what personalization is all about. Sometimes
Right.
I think it gets all wrapped up into the name, where it's more about understanding that people are interested in different things and recognizing that.
Yeah. Like, dear Bob, as you know, Bob, our sale is continuing, Bob. So please call us, Bob.
Yeah,
You,
yeah, that's not personalization. I'm trying to think. I got one the other day about. I'm trying to think what it was, but I think I had bought something at a company, and then about a month later, I got an email that something similar uh, that I had looked at on the site but did not buy was now on sale or special, something like that. And I'm like, now that is such a great example of personalization.
uh,
Is they used my past browsing data, and a month later somehow it's on sale, and then letting me know that's personalization.
yeah. Great.
The next thing, and this was Dan and I have been talking about this, I think, for the past couple of months, is the bots are coming. They're coming to take your job. All right, that's what's happening. What we're seeing is AI is being used. Machine learning is all about learning what people like. AI is when it takes machine learning and makes decisions based on that. All right, I hope that clarifies the terminology there. But what's happening here is companies using AI are seeing the what I call the front end metrics increase dramatically. And by that, AI is writing the headlines of emails. And what they saw here is there was a 450% increase for JP Morgan Chase Bank of AI bots writing titles, and in every test, it outperformed humans who were copywriting or writing the titles. Now, I have no problem with this because really what it's doing is utilizing old direct mail techniques. What direct mail techniques were was testing different copy, different headlines, and seeing what it produced. And so that was what is happening with AI is it's testing different options, but it's testing them faster. And it's testing to see what exactly are the words that trigger people to click. And it's doing it faster than humans. It's sifting through the information and finding patterns that humans may not find. And so as humans, we're writing titles that we think are going to work based on our experience, based on our knowledge and input, whereas a bot is not coming from that same experience. It's coming at it from a very different angle, all about performance. And what does the audience want? What are they looking for? And so they're able to figure out those triggers faster and better than humans. And so that's why we're seeing in these types of scenarios, we're seeing AI vastly outperform humans. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this happening. Now, eventually, will they take over the whole aspect of copywriting and developing content beyond the headline? Probably. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But at the same time, it's going to take humans to provide that oversight that AI may not understand. So, great example of this. I forget what see what I got here. Okay. Dan and I were talking about this. Is what if, and we've seen this before, where emails sometimes go out with a misspelling or a something's not right, and it causes people to click, and it causes people to open, and all the success metrics are hit. So what happens if AI learns that a misspelling increases clicks, conversions, and those types of things? If there's no guardrails, then you may start seeing more and more misspellings happening because it produces the right results. And you've got to ask yourself, at what point does it harm the brand? So that's where you're going to need to see some humans providing those guardrails to AI. Any input on that, Dan? I know we had talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's hard to tell because one of the things that it can't analyze is how many people are sending you angry letters saying, "Oh, you don't know the difference between you, your, and your," and so just because somebody clicks through doesn't necessarily mean that it's a response that you want, even though they can say that. Every response is a good response because then you have some sort of engagement you can take care of. But yeah, I think that the brand harm is a big issue because as many people as click through to remind you of a problem, there are probably a lot more people that are simply going to turn their back on your brand. So yeah, that's an interesting point to be able to put up guardrails. That's a great thing. We should tell all the people in AI. I'm just waiting for a bot to be invented to read my email and tell me what is necessarily relevant. It probably already exists, but pretty soon it's just going to be the bots emailing the bots.
You know what? I think that's a great possibility because if someone comes out with a bot that will go through all my email and only show me the 5 important ones, that I can't think of a better way to save time in my day.
There's our $1 million idea, all you data scientists out there. If you're listening, Russia, if you're listening, create a bot that reads my email.
Yeah. So and I think your point though of bots, writing for bots, that's exactly what's happening. So we're seeing more bots write social media posts. Well, those social media posts have to perform in the algorithm. And so the algorithm is machine learning, trying to find out what people want. The posts are being written by machine learning. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how these next few years play out.
Yeah, maybe there's hope for direct mail.
Could be. But yeah, that's what's really interesting. And so part of this with AI and machine learning, and my biggest question is how far down the funnel are the success metrics being applied to provide the feedback for AI? So, for example, if all you're using is a click-through rate, and that's all AI is looking at is to perform to a click-through rate, then you could see amazing things happening to get that click-through rate. But if AI is looking all the way through those funnel metrics of conversions, of customer lifetime value, more of the bottom of the funnel, full length, full customer journey metrics, then I think you're going to see it a bit more reserved and focused in how it will grow rather than, increase in clicks. Is that our bottom line metric? Or is it increase in customer lifetime value? That's going to greatly affect how AI performs. Okay, the next thing, and this is a trend that I am seeing, and technology is really kind of helping with this, and I'm just calling it insanely great landing pages. I mean, there are some incredible landing pages being designed right now. And the thing is, you've got to stand out from everybody. It's the main difference right now. If you've got competitors in the space, you've got to stand out and show how different you are and making a splash. And the landing page is one of the primary ways of doing that. I love this one with Dropbox, where if you're going to sign up for Dropbox, instead of putting a bunch of content in front of people, just have them watch a video. I loved it. And they've got the button to download Dropbox right there in the video. So just simple, clean, watch the video, and there you have it. I love that. And I'm seeing so many more of these. Hawaiian Airlines has got a landing page where they're actually talking about their employees. They're showing how they paint the airplanes. It just all kinds of stuff about the airlines, but it's immersive about the brand, their culture, their people. It's a fantastic way of presenting a story about your brand and about your company, rather than just simply grabbing information from the subscriber. Sprout, for a webinar here. You can view upcoming webinars, you can jump in, but I just thought it's insanely simple. A great way of getting people's information. And this is sort of that gateway landing page where people hit it and then they hit the view upcoming webinars, and then they land on another page for there. And what I thought was great, so this is a marketing automation, and from this, I filled out, I believe it was a white paper from SharpSpring on their landing page. And this is I guess you could call it's the landing page, because I hit the landing page, I subscribed, and after that's it. I was looking for that infographic, and I had to register to get the infographic. So after the landing page, I got sent to this page. So rather than just a simple thank you for subscribing, thank you for doing this, your infographic's on its way, they put a video demo in the landing page of the landing page, and just asking me for a moment of my time. Here's a less than 2-minute video, and then pushing me into registering for a demo. Fantastic. Great way. There's so many landing pages that I have seen where once you complete the landing page, you're at a blank page that says thank you, and it doesn't move you to that next stage of the funnel. And this is what's happening here at SharpSpring, is they're using an infographic as the bait, and then they're giving you further in with the video, and they ultimately to get you to sign up for a demo. So utilize the thank you pages of your landing pages to move people along and get them into that next stage. You know, I worked with a company once where their landing page was to get people to sign up for a phone call from a representative in order to go through and work with them, because it was kind of a customized product. And what we realized is that if they did not close the registration or close the deal on that phone call, then the second phone call only had about a 5 to 8% success rate. The success rate was closer to 60 to 70 on the first phone call. The second phone call was 5 to 8%. Phenomenal drop off. And so what we found out is what contributed to that second phone call was when people didn't have the documentation and the information they needed on the first phone call. And so all we did was change the landing page. So when people would fill out the landing page and say, call me at this time, the thank you page would then give them a printable checklist of the information they needed for the phone call. And in doing that, it raised the first phone call conversion rate by like 25%. It was just phenomenal. And they had never thought of that before, of saying, here's the information you need. And it was all in the pre-conversion information, but it was never presented as here's a list, print it, get it together for your phone call at this time. Just doing that increased their business. It increased their profitability. It increased it. And it was such a simple move by utilizing that thank you page. All right, retargeting emails. Now, this happens with people who are already a customer, people who are already part of your brand, they're registered. Your email service provider, your e-commerce management program, your CRM, all of them can utilize this. So this is an example with MailChimp from their blog where they talked about this e-commerce provider here by just retargeting what people looked at. So these are existing customers who went to this website, browsed a couple of products, they retargeted them the next day. The open rate was 41%, that generated almost $1,200 in revenue the first month in implementing it. Second thing, as far as newer technology, is what's called real-time emails. This is allowing more interaction and engagement at the email level within your email window rather than clicking through and going to the landing page. So here's a great example of an email from B&Q, and you can interact with the email like it is a web page. And as you would tap, so this was designed for mobile, and so as you would tap each of the navigation items, the background changed, the call to action changed, and you could get more information all within the email. And when you clicked see more, that's when you went to the website. But other than that, all of this would work within the email. And so dynamically, your email within your own email window is now a way to engage with people, and rather than just giving a more static approach. Great example of this is kind of a scratch and win, where they can engage with the email and scratch the options to find, here's the promotion, get the one you want. And so, again, people can interact with it. It's dynamic. It allows movement and activity going on without having to click through. Another one here, and I've seen this utilized in so many different ways, is Timberland here is giving a weather forecast. The weather forecast is pulling live data based on the IP address of the user. I think there might be another factor going in there. So regardless of where you open this email, it's your weather. And so a great example of how to integrate data from other sources to provide a more relevant and personalized email. Finally, it's all about the money. All of these things are great, and I've talked about this. It's been the background theme of the entire webinar is, are you tracking that full length funnel? Are you tracking the customer value all the way through? What that means is what you should be tracking is your revenue per email. So if you're doing a retargeting campaign, what's your revenue per email for that campaign? If you're doing an onboarding campaign, what's your revenue per email for that? What's the average revenue per email? And dividing up your campaigns. Which ones are designed to produce revenue? Which ones are designed to produce loyalty? Which ones are designed to produce actions such as ratings or something like that? And track your revenue per email per campaign. And let that influence then and work all the way through to your average customer lifetime value and how that's affected by email based on where they came from, based on the campaign that brought them there, based on the amount of interactions or sales or upsells. Look at your conversions per campaign, the sales per campaign. Don't just look at those top-level metrics of opens and clicks and conversions. Go deeper into the funnel. One of the best things I always recommend is what's called the RFS, recency, frequency, and spend. How much are people spending? How often are they spending it? When's the last time they spent it? If you're looking deeper into those types of metrics and applying them into your revenue calculations or your engagement calculations, you're going to receive a lot more information about what makes a successful campaign, what people like, and what drives a more profitable customer than simply looking at those top-level metrics. So Dan, that's it for me. Open for some questions if we're ready.
Sure. One of the things we're talking about laws, let's give a little refresher on CAN spam. Our favorite email law goes back to 2003, and it might be nice to talk about and what exactly it's about and what a lot of people are ignoring. I can't tell you how many emails I'm getting from very large companies, as a matter of fact, that seem to be lacking a lot of the important things, such as even something obvious like an unsubscribe link. Or a lot of people don't realize that the fine for not having a compliant CAN spam email is, if you report it, is $16,000 per occurrence. So kind of run us through what CAN spam means and how we can what we can do to protect ourselves and make sure we have all that data in there. I mean, it's pretty easy to just look it up and make sure that you're compliant. If you're working with an ESP, I'm sure that helps. But what are your thoughts on CAN spam, and is it even still relevant?
It's completely relevant, and what I find interesting is the companies that are not complying with CAN spam are doing their own email. They're not using an email service provider. Mm-hmm. Because if you're using an email service provider, Constant Contact, MailChimp, any of those, that unsubscribe link is part of the email. You can't remove it because they're keeping you compliant. The most amount of companies that I see breaking this are probably using their own email server in order to get around it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the biggest thing that I see is a lack of an unsubscribe. If you get an email that says to unsubscribe, reply, and type unsubscribe, that's completely illegal, according to CAN spam. And believe me, I've been keeping a record of who's doing this, and I'm kind of wondering who gets that 16,000. Do I get it, or is someone else get it? So who's doing that? The other thing is you can't have an email subject line that pretends that there's an existing relationship or an existing thread. What that means is if you receive an email with RE, which means that it's a reply, mm-hmm. but it's not a reply to a conversation that actually happened. It's deceptive. So deceptive email line subjects are completely illegal according to CAN spam. Which is amazing because I still get some of those. I still see them pop up. Now, a lot of it's happening with email servers and spam happening outside of the country. And so trying to track down who's doing that is very difficult. But once in a while, I do see people doing that. And what's amazing, Dan, is I'm seeing this happening on LinkedIn now with some of we are being approached by businesses on LinkedIn. They're doing things in the subject line with LinkedIn InMail that would violate canned spam. It's tricky. It's just the two biggest things: allow people to unsubscribe and don't try and trick them with the subject line.
Yeah.
On canned spam.
Great, good advice. How do you report people for violating canned spam?
It's supposed to be through the FTC. But from what I understand, the backlog and in very egregious cases, they'll take it on. I haven't seen like low-level stuff happen.
Right. Yeah. So here's a question: what is a good email provider to use that can do a good job of segmenting and is cost-effective for a small business that has an email list of approximately 100,000 subscribers? I know this is like in the product recommendation category, but any ideas of where they could look?
Oh, there's so many you can use, and many times, depending upon the amount of subscribers, I think if it's under a certain amount, you may get a free account. It's usually based on the amount of subscribers in your list. But even if it's not free, I'll tell you what, it's going to be low cost for a list like that. Look at MailChimp. Look at Emma or Constant Contact. Those are probably your top three as far as small business, and then you can grow into other things. But those are the ones that I would start with. Just look and see, what features are most important to you and what will integrate with your database, as far as if it will integrate with your website and things like that.
Right. I just want to say thanks again, Matt, for joining us. And it's been a pleasure knocking these ideas around with you.
Yeah, always. Look forward to the next one.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And keep your email legal. Bye-bye.